Who has a 100-word summary of the trouble you guys got into last week? Where did the investigation take you?
Kernel-based virtual machine. Okay.
Nowhere good.
That's the wrong abbreviation for KVM.
Not that KVM, the other KVM, dumbass. God.
I'm sorry, what were we doing?
I want a 100-word summary of why I have the word hookshotologist in my notes.
I don't actually remember
Fair.
in what context the word hookshotologist came up.
So let's get back to what the trouble you guys got up to last week.
Was last week when we discovered that they were trying to, I guess, dig a hole to the Underdark? I'm not sure what their end goal was.
Yeah. Last week once we found out that it's 6 days to the end of the world.
I mean, end of the world, that's a little dramatic. Right?
Would you rather me be under dramatic? It's 6 days until,
I don't know. Has Alex built a water clock to...
Yes, he absolutely has a water clock sitting on the barge. It's like the H1 in that when the barge rocks back and forth, there are counterweights that go in the opposite direction to keep good time on the ocean.
It's just like in 6 days. It's a water clock. That's gonna... Oh. So anyway. Let's see. We looked into the Apple of Time. I remember that. The problem I'm having is the last 2 weeks are kind of blending together in my brain.
Well, that's fine.
I'm trying to separate
it's
them.
all one investigation.
Was last week... we learned about psionics from the gnome that Alex contacted when Gus went full Karen.
Right.
And we, I guess, had we gave him a very poor first impression because we tied him up and paralyzed him.
Yes, you did.
But he deserved it.
Did he?
Just like the doll did. Yeah, just like the doll. And the last thing I remember is us musing about how Mystic wasn't good.
Right, Connor wanted to learn how to cast spells with his mind.
What do you cast them with now?
Connor does like a little interpretive dance.
He learned to cast from bees. He just shakes his twerks.
Soul pheromones.
I mean, he is Fey touched, so that could be an explanation.
And then Journey had sent you guys a gift to your barge.
Right, and we found out that they did not actually do the investigation. They were bought off.
By Vinmus, which upsets Alex.
Uh-huh. Ah, Vinmus, yes. So, I guess we're going to look into Vinmus now. Although they said Vinmus left.
Yeah,
right?
he left when the, threats to reality showed up. He started sailing and sent different ships to sail in different directions. I don't know exactly.
Word is that he was scouring the local seas, basically going out on patrols on his own volition because he has so far been unable to persuade the crown that this sort of thing needs to be codified in some kind of official context. Dunfoss does not have a royal navy or any kind of royal fleet.
Also, we contacted Caitlin Chubb, Brickroad's favorite NPC.
My favorite.
To look into the origins of a note.
Yep.
Indicating a plot to assassinate King Tinsel's. She was not confident that she could backtrace it. But hope springs eternal. Right? Right.
I mean, my favorite NPC was Lois Vesterhoff, clearly.
You could have multiple favorites. So, like in this campaign, it's Caitlin Chubb, and the last it's Handax.
It's the Jesus. It's the bane of my existence is that none of my favorite NPCs are your guys' favorites, so I don't get to use them all that often. Except Aunt Nancy. All right. Is anybody taking a long rest tonight? Or are you going to work through the night?
Are we do we need to do anything, guys, that will require immediate
I mean, I'm actually not down any resources, so
yeah,
if we
I'm
have
not
work to
as
do,
well.
I can too. Well, maybe Vinmus just didn't trust Tenzale's, with the information. Alex is clearly not entirely confident on that theory.
I mean,
Oh, and Journey got her note to come and get her garbage, right?
You've
We
returned the
got
garbage.
a runner child or a sending or something to her.
like we've stuffed him into a garbage can, and it's like that scene in Breath of Fire 2 where the garbage can's bouncing up and down.
That's my favorite sprite from that game. Go ahead and take the benefits of a long rest. I'm going to step away for 2 minutes and get a bottle of water. And when I come back, we will pick it up the next morning.
I think we should. We've already broken into one embassy and a noble house, and I feel like we've violated the like the what is the word I'm looking for here? Like when the national sovereignty of another nation. Did we do anything with the Keyskin embassy that was illegal against them that I'm misremembering? Because I feel like we did something to them as well. So what I'm getting at is we should probably break into this fish person embassy.
There's no embassy. He was just working off his boat,
Right.
which
Same
isn't there
thing.
anymore.
Oh. Okay. I thought they had a house.
There's the doctor, who I think is maybe his brother. Am I remembering that right? In Broken Wall?
It might be a good place to start. Ask him why his brother would do that.
All right, so the next morning.
I got a 6 on my d20 roll, by the way.
Okay. Some changes in the harbor early next morning before we collect your actions for the day. The Whistler, which is Ten Sails' royal ship, is now fully staffed, fully manned with his own people. And the ship's guns are pointed at the ghost ship in the harbor. There's a lot of activity up and down the royal dock where the Whistler is anchored. This means that the Humberth dock, where the ghost ship still sits, is less guarded than it was yesterday. You see now, whereas before you had royal men-at-arms and men from House Humberth kind of cordoning off the area, there are far fewer of them today, and the crowd is even larger than yesterday. Not only are they clamoring to be allowed to board King Catsbin's vessel, but some of them are also booing and chastising and throwing things at the king's ship. So the harbor is a bit of a powder keg this morning. Let's go ahead and collect some morning actions.
So I'm under the impression that I think I might be able to go under there and shoot out that chain a couple of times a day and maybe slow down the end of the world. Which, by the way, is at 5 now.
It's possible.
I would like to do that as my morning action if Lucius has a water breathing.
I can provide it for you, yeah.
So Alex is going to postpone the end of the world.
Yep.
Call that crime on the downtime action list.
don't know. Like,
What about everybody else?
I'm just gonna wait to see if anybody else does crime and needs a distraction, and then
You're pretty good at it. But
I'm
Lucius
lo-
doesn't have crime in mind today.
What does
Oh.
Lucius have in mind for today?
Lucius,
crimes plural.
I'm thinking what I want to do is I want to follow up because this daughter of the Keyskin ambassador, like she's chomping at the bit to get something done, and I'm curious as to what that might be. Thinking I might confront her on that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to go to the embassy and meet with her?
Yes.
I was joking about causing a third international incident. By the way,
What about Gus and Connor?
I do have a question. Did we sent a letter to the magic letter that we had that paper for Warlock Spain?
Mm-hmm.
Did she ever reply?
I had forgotten that you had used it. What did you write in the letter?
Basically, I think we just explained what was like that Catspin came and on a ship made of bones, and basically, I don't remember the exact like contents of the letter. We just told her what was going on.
I remember
And
you
then
guys had discussed doing that, but you hadn't actually pulled the trigger on it yet. You wanted to get more information about what was going on because it was a one-time
Okay.
thing.
All right. Then that might be the case then. I thought we did
Yeah.
actually send it.
Okay. I mean,
There was some discussion about it, but you
today.
guys didn't know a lot about what was going on just yet. Would you like to do that this morning, Gus?
I think we should pull the trigger on that. Because we've got a limited amount of... We're on a ticking time clock. We're on a ticking clock. Like, she's already not going to be able to make it back to the city.
Yeah, she's a high-level character. She might have teleportation rituals or something. You don't have the spell Summon Fearbolg?
No, I've only got second level spell slots. That is a 5th level spell.
5th level spell Summon Fearbolg. Imagine if there were a spell like that. You just summon like PC humanoid races. Like there's a dude in your party who's a dwarf and you just keep summoning him.
Oh, I've seen a campaign where that happened before.
That would get old super quick, I imagine.
Yeah, they were super annoyed by it. He would disappear in the middle of combat.
Like, hey, roll another save versus being teleported.
Oh no, there was no save. They were like bound at the soul for some reason. So
There's no. I know.
Yep.
Demons
Isn't
and
that
Devils in second edition got a save.
it was an out of character conceit to the fact that the player couldn't be there all the time. So like the party was super annoyed by it because
Isn't that a
sometimes in the
thing that
middle of a fight
happens
their
in
wizard
Sigil?
would disappear to fight with
Yes, Planescape
fight
has
an
the
evil emperor on another plane.
Planescape has the entire concept of summoning crystals.
Yeah.
Whenever a wizard on the Prime casts a summoning spell, it sends a summoning crystal out to the outer planes to find the thing you're looking for. And sometimes wizards would capture them to release them as weapons. And mechanically, this is representing, because those spells just have a chance of failure in second edition. There's not a saving throw against them per se, but you have to roll percentile. There's like an 8 or 9% chance or whatever it is, it'll fail. And that's how
love that.
That's how the lore, they explain the failure rate, is whenever those spells fail, it's because somebody messed with your spell crystal out on the outer planes.
I love that. That's one of my favorite things.
Did I use the Demarax in Flumphscape?
You did.
The monster
We had
that's
a
like,
whole.
he eats spell crystals?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was there. Like we got him stuck in a hill once upon a time.
You guys are bastards.
It was an accident.
All right, so Gus, you're going to write a letter to Warlock Spain using the magic stationery?
Yes. Basically, just going to summarize everything that we know.
Well, it's going to take me a
And
few minutes to get around to your turn, so why don't you just write it out for us?
Oh God.
Connor, what would you like to do this morning?
Well, I hear the docks are a powder keg.
They're
So
fine.
you know what this situation needs? Connor.
Dragon powder.
You're heading down to High Courts Harbor then?
Yeah.
So when you arrive at High Courts Harbor, most of the other ships in the harbor have now been moved. High Courts Harbor, this is where the creme de la creme of Dunfossan nobility keep their private vessels. Most of these are pleasure barges or something similar. They're like private yachts kind of thing, which means they're not long distance, like ocean going vessels. These are not going to Christopher Columbus their way across the ocean to discover new lands that people already live on. So most of these like wealthy families and noble houses in Dunfoss are renting out docks in East and West Harbor, which are the more mercantile districts of the Dunfoss Harbor, to get their ships and their ocean-going vessels away from the King's vessel and the ghost ship, which is essentially right next door. So some of the powder keg that's going off when you get there, it's like some of the citizens have been clearly psionically influenced, the way that Percival Penniless was. Some of them are angry, though, that business in East and West Harbor is being diverted away from merchant vessels, so the rich elite of Dunfoss have a place to stash their yacht while the unpleasantness happens in High Courts. You have also noticed by this morning that some of the lesser houses of nobility, people that have standings and titles and perhaps have small vessels of themselves in High Court, but don't have 1,000 gold pieces a day, have circled around and are anchoring their boats off of Wharftown or the Shallows.
Oh.
So we're at the point now where this is starting to impact business in Dunfoss. Maritime trade is starting to be impacted because East and West Harbor are filled up with ships that should not be there and ordinarily would not be.
Okay.
So what are you doing this morning? Making that noise?
Digging emoji.
Yeah. Brick's audience is going to get that reference.
Is there a way to find what your most used emoji is on Discord?
Oh,
It's thinking
absolute-
emoji.
It's absolutely the thinking emoji.
I think you
Without
hit
a
me like
doubt.
4 times last night. I'm like, oh, I must have said something really messed up.
You're really
It was
now.
it was a thought-provoking question.
So what are you doing this morning?
Let's. How much trouble do I want to get in? Let's go over to the King's barge or the King's boat.
You're not going to get close to the dock because it's under heavy guard.
It's under heavy guard. And when I say, yeah, I'm Connor with Flumph, they're all like, we don't give a
They don't know
hoot.
who that is.
Okay.
So the people that are
Okay.
guarding the King's dock or aboard his ship, currently manning the guns and everything, would be his like house guard. So it's not made up of like moss caps or anything. These are the people who yesterday were preventing people from getting onto the ghost ship at the Humberth dock.
Is anyone preventing people getting onto the ghost ship now? Or is there like...
What's your passive perception and what's your passive insight?
My passive perception is 14. My passive insight is 18.
Okay. So you do see people on the Humberth dock. Because yesterday there were some men-at-arms in Humberth livery, people in the house's employ. And those people are still there, doing the same job. But there's far fewer of them because yesterday they were bolstered by the palace guard as well. However, amongst their number, you do see they're being assisted by essentially just dudes in plain clothes. with swords or sticks or spears or other simple weapons. And looking at the situation, it looks like these men must be sellswords. These must be men that were hired on by somebody to assist the Humberth House guard in preventing people from getting aboard the ghost ship.
Okay. I want to help them. I want to make it Connor's goal for this morning to make sure that no one touches that ship.
How?
He will... I don't know if there's anyone who looks more official than others, but Connor would introduce himself, say like, I'm here to help, make sure no one gets on that ship. And if it starts getting rowdy, I'm going to start punching people.
So the man that you speak to...
Because I worked with, what's his name?
You do find a man in Humberth livery who's fairly aged, has a shiny bald head, salt and pepper beard, and he is the head of House Humberth's home garrison. This is not a man who's in service to House Humberth and Dunfoss. He must have traveled here along with Duke Rune. He's in charge of this garrison at the Humberth Holdings on their vineyards far outside of town. You get the sense immediately from him, first of all, that he is, in the immediate sense, he's skeptical of your offer of help, but he seems to get a good read of you pretty quickly, and is eager to put you to work. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good is Connor at following orders in a military sense? Like, if this man barked out where you need to be and what you need to be doing, how able are you to do it without questioning and without giving back talk?
So the subtext here is that Connor's still really curious about the mind going on and psionics and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 8.
An 8. Okay.
Yeah. The moment something curious happens, though, like, I think Connor might be like, I want to find out more about psionics.
What is the most violent thing Connor is willing to do to keep this crowd from getting onto the gangplank and onto the boat?
Oh. Well, he punched Penniless. I don't...
Keeping in mind, when I say crowd, like, some of these people are children or old ladies.
Right. If Connor's life felt threatened, he would not think twice about being equally violent.
So if a child ran up to you with a knife, you would stab the child.
Oh, God, when you put... Yeah.
That's going to be the tagline for this video. Connor stabs a child.
Listen, good acts exist between the realms of order and chaos, and achieving them is the most important thing. So
it's the most important thing that Connor stabs a child.
It's the most important thing that Connor walks away with his life.
Okay.
Again, not how I saw this character going.
That's what happens when you roll up a dirty wilderness ranger in an urban campaign. You wind up out of your wheelhouse, so to speak. I don't feel responsible for that, by the way. Like, this was your second character. You knew what the game was.
No, you should. Why would you? This is my dumb character I'm enjoying a lot.
You got to enjoy your dumb characters, man. So, Alex, you have the benefits of water breathing, thanks to Lucius,
Yep.
yes?
Yeah, talking to Greglud, does my racial bonus against magic that gives me advantage on saves work against psionics?
No.
Okay. So yeah, before I start shooting this thing, then I will cast Intellect Fortress, which I've been led to believe would have advantage against psionics, would provide advantage against
It
psionics.
will indeed, yes.
So yeah, Alex will put Intellect Fortress on himself, he'll tether himself to Scrappy again, and he'll head underwater and take a couple shots at that chain from maximum range of my gun.
Okay. What is the maximum range of your gun?
Good question. Let's see here. Max range on a musket is 120.
Now, that 120, is that your range where disadvantage begins to be imposed, or is that the maximum?
That's at disadvantage, but I have sharpshooter.
Okay. Let's reduce that 120 down to about 80 because you're underwater.
Sure.
The weapon's not going to travel as far. And give me a perception check.
Yep. That would be an 8. Scrappy has a perception too, if that matters.
Actually, your effective range would be 60, wouldn't it? Because that's the range of your dark vision.
No, I'm a deep gnome. I have 80 feet of dark vision.
Oh, okay.
60 or 80, actually. That's a good question. Let me check.
Because you wouldn't be able to see outside of the range of your dark vision.
120. Deep gnome.
Oh, okay. Never mind. So, yeah, let's call it 8. I think 80 is fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me that perception check, please. How'd that do?
Mine's an 8. Do I get to roll for Scrappy?
If Scrappy has dark vision, sure.
This is only 60 feet.
Then not if he's standing with you, he doesn't.
Okay, that's fine.
Give me to hit rolls with your musket until you hit an AC of 20. I want to see how many shots this takes.
1.
First shot. The hole in one. And you're seeing it from a distance today, whereas yesterday you saw it closer in, where you blast this chain apart and you see it list with the water. And yeah, you're fairly confident at the rate you watched it yesterday that you postpone things for another 8 hours or so.
Okay.
Are you doing anything else down there?
I guess I'll get a little bit closer and see if circumstances of like what the effects of the last day have had on the floor of the harbor.
How close?
Let's say 60 feet.
And give me another perception check as you're moving in.
It's a perception of 15.
15? As you're closing in today, what stops you is you start seeing some number of vaguely humanoid shapes walking along the ocean floor. Very difficult to spot because, I mean, you can't see color. They're kicking mud up everywhere and moving in your direction.
I'll get on Scrappy and move 80 feet the other direction.
So are you leaving the area, or are you just trying to put distance in between you?
I'm going to put distance to see if they follow me.
They are following you. Or at least they follow to the point... Because, I mean, when you fire your musket, it's very visible. It's like a flash of alchemic color or something. You watch for a few minutes, and some of these creatures, these humanoid creatures, kind of stumble up to the area where you were when you fired the shot, and they list around for a little while. Probably 5 or 6 of them. And
I'll fire another shot above them as they start to mill back.
Now, if you're angling your shot upward, you're going to break the water at some point.
I mean, I think I'm probably far enough out that shouldn't matter, right?
No, you're in High Court Harbor. You're here because you're like 80 feet away.
Okay, well, I'll shoot the dirt like 20 feet to the side of them then, instead of aiming out of the surface of the water.
Okay, and it kicks up this cloud of muck, expanding out into the area, and the humanoid creatures, kind of break off into 2 groups. One group, 2 or 3 of them disappear into this cloud of muck and vanish from sight. The others start moving in the direction from which they saw the muzzle flash, which is your direction.
I'll move another 80 feet back and see what happens when they get there.
And again, now there's only 2 or 3 of them because they've broken off into groups. But it just kind of looks like they're milling around. Give me an insight check.
Yep.
Do you have nature or religion?
I believe I have neither.
Neither. Okay, just an insight check then, please.
Let me double check on that. Oh, I do have nature.
Okay, then make this at advantage.
Sure. That's a 16.
Okay. The creatures are not exhibiting any behavior that you would expect, even from an animal intelligence. It looks like these are just shambling constructs of some kind that are being guided by some other intelligence elsewhere. They must have a set of instructions to follow, and that's what you're watching.
Psionic constructs of some sort. Like, back of the envelope gets. Alright, Alex is going to head back to the barge with that information.
Okay. Lucius.
Sure.
You were granted entrance into the embassy, and today you're interested in meeting with Motto, correct?
Yes, Motto, yeah.
Are you going to do this in an official capacity? Because typically when you come here with other business, she just latches onto you and follows you around anyway. So the question is, do you make it clear that you're coming here specifically for her, or are you coming here on some pretense and then using that as an excuse to be around her?
Probably a pretense.
Okay.
I can't really think of a good one though.
Doesn't really matter what it is.
Yeah.
She's always a little bit deprecating whenever you're around the embassy. Like, you know that her father has her on a short leash, doesn't give her full reign of the town. She doesn't have a lot of personal freedoms. And she's not, you can tell that she's not either aware of or is not convinced of the idea that her father does any kind of important work in Dunfoss. So, yeah, there's always this deprecating, bored tone to her. She's always looking for stories or information or pieces of excitement. And what she wants today is she wants to know all about this ghost ship that's shown up.
Lucius will tell her a couple of things about it. How it's killed 2 people, being in contact with it so far. And near as I can tell, it's exerting some kind of influence over the people. Because vocal opponents, or vocal supporters of King Tensails, are now turning their backs on him.
She asks whether... No, she doesn't ask. She implies... What's your passive insight?
My passive insight is not appearing before me for some reason.
But you came here to speak with her under a false pretense, yes?
Yeah.
Go ahead and give me an insight check, then. Since your attention is not distracted in any way. Because she kind of implies, when you're talking that these people are under some other kind of influence, her immediate thought is to point out that it must be devilish influence.
A 10.
A 10? Yes, that's her immediate thought. You mean like it must be devilish influence then? There must be devils involved.
Lucius shakes his head. It says, there have been no agents disembarked from the ship, near as what I can tell. It's all been directly, and he taps the side of his head, directly through the mind.
Well, that's how devils work.
No. Lucius shakes his head and says, not entirely no. They'll usually send some sort of envoy or agent in their stead.
Would that not be the man on the ship?
Treat with a person on a person-to-person basis. Not make a proclamation from the deck of a ship demanding fealty from an entire city.
Well, that's what King Ten Sails did.
Lucius nods. It's one
And-
interpretation of it.
And now he's the king.
And again, yes, that's one interpretation of how things went down. What is your fascination with all of these goings on? If you don't mind my asking.
It's the most fascinating thing that happened since the rocket exploded.
I'll have to tell you a little story about that some other time, perhaps, but leaving out certain details.
So what are you trying to glean from a conversation with Mato this morning? What's the intention?
What I'm trying to get from her is trying to see if she's putting on airs, like if she has, like if she knows more than she's letting on
More about what?
about the situation with this ship, or just any of the general goings on around the city.
And how are you trying to get this information out of her? Are you just trying to read her reactions? Are you trying to ask direct questions of her? Are you trying to lead her into a conversation where she'll let something slip?
The latter, yeah. Trying to lawyer it up a little bit.
Okay. Give me another insight check, please.
That's a really bad roll. Do I blip this? No, I don't blip this.
No? Okay.
No, I'm gonna let it ride.
Let
I'm gonna
it
let this
ride.
3 ride.
We'll say that you can either do this using deception or performance.
Deception.
Okay.
God. I'm gonna
Is it-
Mephistopheles, lean on the walls of reality.
He's not leaning hard. Not this morning.
He's not hard. No, he needs his coffee first. That's a 9.
A 9.
Yeah.
Make a third insight check. This is an opposed roll against her.
10.
10. Now I need to get my phone. See what you've made me do?
I mean, that's on you, man. He can't be if he can stop being a millennial for 5 seconds. Get off the phone.
This is how much of a millennial I am not, okay? The most used app on my phone, including the app I use to text message my wife, is the 5th edition spellbook app.
No, that's valid.
I go for days at a time without ever touching my phone.
I'm just hooked up on the fact that he's mad you failed a roll. Like, what?
I did
what is
I did
ever
my
happened?
level best. I did my level best. Like I want some horrible consequences for failing all these insight rolls.
There might be.
Bring it.
Can I
Bring
please
it.
have
That makes it
a
fun.
wisdom saving throw?
Sure, I can get you one of those. 16.
16, okay. Matzo is a very deft conversationalist, you're coming to realize.
Mm-hmm.
She very easily snakes between different topics of conversation, especially when you get on the subject of, like, explaining some story or something that you've lived through, especially with the ones that she finds exciting. She has a way of drawing that out of you. And at some point, just very casually in conversation, you're not even 100% sure of what it was she asked you directly, But for a moment, you feel the inclination to reveal to her the identity of Mephistopheles. And then
Okay,
you catch
I-
yourself just before you do it. And you realize there was some kind of magical influence in her question. And suddenly, you realize that this girl must be much more dangerous than she's letting on.
I'm going to stop the conversation and say, why do you want to know about all of this?
No, I'm just asking the little gnomish one, the ambassador's son. He's your boss, right? I was just asking about your boss.
No, I don't think you were. I think you were asking about something a little more intriguing.
Because he and
You're
his
asking-
sister are the children of an ambassador of a much more dangerous and interesting place than Kiska, and they're allowed to go out into the city.
Hmm. So you want to? Why does your father keep you under lock and key? I wonder.
And she adopts a pouty face, which you're much less inclined to buy into at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But she surmises just because Dunfoss is a much more dangerous city than Kiska is. It's a foreign place that she doesn't understand very well, and he's still convinced that she's a child. The way it was explained to her is that in Kiska, killings are done in the gladiator pits, whereas in Dunfoss, the killings are done in alleyways behind buildings.
But you've. Okay. Is she trying to feed me a line? Is that what I'm getting?
I'll leave it up to
From
you
her.
whether you believe her or not. That's your call.
Okay. She wants something. She wants something from me about Mephistopheles. That's the line. That's the vibe I'm getting here. And I'm not about to give it to her.
Okay?
Nope. Not happening. Sorry.
So spending the morning with Matsu, like, how do you leave the encounter? Are you leaving amicably? Are you going to stamp your feet and storm off? Are we kidnapping
I'll
her?
leave amicably.
Okay. Gus, would you like to read your letter that you've written?
I can read it, but I will wait. Basically, this is the first draft. I'll wait for. Well, you know what? Forget it. I'll just send this. Dead King Catspin has sailed back to the harbor on a ship made of bones. He's psychically controlling the population and digging a sinkhole under the boat. Boat seems to be sentient and killed people who stepped on it. Suspect is related to the dwarf home thing. There is also a plot to go kill King. Any insider advice appreciated.
Okay. And what is the nature
Love.
of the letter? How is she able to respond? I know I invented this magic item, but it was a very long time ago.
I think that like maybe I think my brain is telling me that the text disappears and then like her response appears, but it's like a one-time use thing.
Does that sound right to everybody else?
It's a weird orange fluid. That's the main thing that's in my notes.
Sincerely, Gus.
Does Gus draw like a little heart after his name?
I Gus dots all of his eyes with little hearts.
Right, but his name doesn't have an I in it.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, but there's a lot of I's in this letter he's writing.
Right? Yeah.
Do you sign it
Presumably.
Gis?
No.
Okay.
He needs an umlaut.
Who's
Then
Gis?
he'll make two. Then he'll make two hearts.
Oh man, that's too much love in one syllable. Also, then it would be goose, wouldn't it?
Roos.
Connor, make me a stab a child check.
Connor has proficiency in that.
Oh no.
So no. What is Connor's general strategy for going about his duty? Like, say that people in this mob start forming up on him. Like, do you draw your weapon and start going to town? Are we going to do something magical? Are you just going to puff out your chest and try to exert some authority? What's your
I think
general strategy?
first would be to exert some authority. And once that failed, Gus had a great suggestion of
No!
lightning arrow.
No.
A great
No.
suggestion of what?
Lightning arrow.
Well, let's start with a strength intimidation check.
Those are terrible stats.
Please do not lightning arrow the civilians. That would be. I was making a joke.
Oh wow! Wait a minute. That is an 18.
All right.
Wow.
So
Wow! Yeah.
Apparently,
a part of the mob does start forming up on you because, let's face it, you are the least physically imposing man out here on the docks who's doing this job. That's counting the men-at-arms from House Humberth, plus whatever sellswords the Duke has placed here. You're toothpick man out here doing this work. But when people form up on you, just something about the commanding aura in your voice and your ability to move and put yourself directly in their line. Does Connor have little man syndrome?
Little man syndrome.
Have you not heard of little man syndrome?
I can't. Nope.
This
Is it like little dog syndrome
It's the same thing, just for men instead of dogs.
for men?
Because my dog has little man syndrome, where he's so tiny that he overcompensates by being really aggressive and really harsh. Like, you know how sometimes at the club there's like the 4-foot tall bouncer? Like, that's not the one I'm
You know
messing with.
what? You know what? Yeah, he does.
So it's just little man syndrome all over High Courts Harbor this morning, and you do. Not only does nobody try to force their way through you, but like a couple of the other men at arms kind of glom onto you and start kind of following your lead. And at some point, you find yourself in a more central position on this line, and you get the sense as the morning goes on that there are moments here and there where things could have gotten really out of hand, but you were able to impose yourself, keep some authority over this crowd. Is that all you're doing, is trying to keep them off of the dock?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like they knew that if they stepped out of line, the lightning arrow was coming. They could see it in your eyes.
What were you
Yeah.
going to do with the lightning arrow if you failed that check?
Shoot it up into the sky. Like, I did that
Why was this going to help?
to help with the intimidation. I'm going to do that. You're going to be next. It's not going to be in the sky. It's going to be on your face.
We knew how that went with the wizard or
He's got a little man.
This
He's got
was,
little man syndrome.
this was Gus's idea?
This
No,
was Gus's idea.
I was making a joke. No, don't. No, I made a joke in the Discord chat when you said, "What is how far are you going to take this?" And I went, "LOL, lightning arrow."
I feel like this has happened a lot, where Gus like makes a joke and doesn't realize that that's a dangerous thing to do with D&D players of this stripe.
Listen, I'm not going to stop being who I am just because they're all awful people.
And Alex,
I have
you're heading back to the barge after you're done underwater? Okay. Connor, are you staying at the harbor all day to do this work? Or are you leaving? Take after
It's
you
going
elsewhere?
so well. I think I have to.
Okay. And Alex has postponed the end of the world.
Are you gonna adjust your water clock?
Yes, I am.
Gus, the response from Warlock's Bane comes at some point over the afternoon. What is your afternoon action?
Just stay at the barge, Gus. Unless anybody needs me to do something, Gus has got no plans.
Alex, what's yours?
I mean, I needed to tell everybody about these creatures and decide if we want to head underwater and try and do something about them.
So your afternoon action is going to be to reconvene at the barge?
Yeah.
And Lucius?
I'll do the same.
Okay. So, some point in the afternoon, before you guys have a discussion about these creatures, Warlock's Bane does write back on the parchment. So the orange ink just kind of fades in out of nowhere. And she describes 2 courses of action. Because from Gus's letter, she's not totally clear what's happening with this ship. Gus wrote that people tried to board the ship and died. If it's exerting a sort of negative energy force, because she's a professional monster hunter. She does this for a living. And who amongst you, the 3 of you who are back at the boat, do we have some combination of arcana, religion, and nature?
Yeah.
Between the
I
3
think
of you?
all of us have Arcana, don't we?
Lucius's religion, and I think Alexander said he had nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is that a living creature is alive because it has a positive energy to it. A spark of life that comes from somewhere. Whereas an undead creature is the opposite. It's not literally dead, but its spark comes from a negative energy place. If that's the case with this ghost ship, if it's exuding this kind of undead field made out of negative energy, then a way to protect yourself from it is to cloak yourself in it. You would need some kind of magic spell or some kind of device that can wrap negative energy around yourself. She's actually been making use of this kind of thing as she's gone in on her expeditions into the mountain home. But it's not something she can help you with at a distance. You're going to have to find something yourself to do that with. However, if that's not the case, if what's causing these people to die has some other kind of force, for example, there could be invisible creatures aboard the deck, or there's all kinds of elemental forces that could do it, particularly electricity could be doing it, then she doesn't have a good way to advise you. Either way, her advice is if she was there, she would find a way onto that ship and destroy it from the inside. Very notably, and Gryglud, who is still at your barge, will point this out if he is involved in the conversation. Very notably, she never once mentions psionics, and you can't even be certain if Warlock's Bane is even aware of psionics as a threat.
Yeah.
Actually,
But-
is Gryglud privy to this conversation?
I wouldn't. I mean, he came here to help, so I wouldn't be
Yeah.
opposed to it.
Okay.
Sure.
Then, yeah, he's a little insulted, Gus. Because he showed up here at Alex's behests and has this font of knowledge about the exact threat that's shown up, and you write off to your girlfriend who's on the other side of the continent to ask her for help. Do you want my help?
You were. I was asking her about the undead ship, which is not, you know, you came to help us about the psychic energy waves.
And he just face palms.
Like, do you know, like, what do you know about undead ghost ships?
He asks Alex if Alex thinks it would help if Greiglid would let him look through the little psionic lens that he had brought.
Sure.
So, Gus, you're handed his little scope with the psionic lens affixed to it that allows you to see the psychic waves coming off of the ghost ship and stretching out over the town.
Oh.
Do we want to fly? You want to fly up there, Gus? Here's some boot clips for wings of flying.
No, it's fine. Listen, I'm just getting a second opinion.
So, as far as the second opinion goes, it is relatively detailed. She doesn't have any artifacts or anything in the city in her manor house that could help with this, because obviously she took all of anything she thought could be useful with her to the north when she went. But she does give some detailed information about the types of things that can provide a negative energy field if that's what's happening with the ship. And all three of you, go ahead and make an Arcana check at advantage. Individually. As long as you're trained in it. I always forget if Gus is trained or not.
Gus is trained in Arcana.
24.
All right, so that's a 30 plus 5. 34 for Alex.
I don't think you can go higher than 30. Like, the 30 is the biggest number.
Okay.
We're getting to that point
24.
in the campaign where you always say that, Brick Road.
That's how I know you're getting to be too high level.
24.
The description she gives of the type of things you can use to maintain what she's calling like a negative energy field. Because undead creatures of all types have a connection to negative energy in some way, if you know what you're doing and you butcher them properly, sometimes their body parts or their internal organs can be harvested in a way that they can be used alchemically. And the thing that immediately pops into your mind when she's talking about this is the horrific lich arm that you've had stowed away on your barge for months.
Think her theory, do you think her at least the theory of her protections against undead, do you think something similar could be made of the mind?
And Greiglid says, gee, I don't know. I guess I'd never thought of it before. Perhaps we'd have to consult some sort of... Then he glares at Gus. Master of psionics.
I was consulting a master of the undead on an undead ship. And it had nothing to do with psionics. That's what you're here for.
Greiglid does confirm, though, that just like every other force in the world can be controlled magically, through elemental magic or through arcane magic or divine magic, he doesn't see any reason, if there is a wellspring of negative energy, why it couldn't be controlled or commanded psionically.
Where are we going to get a thing to cloak ourselves in, though?
Well, that's what your Arcana check was for. When you're reading through her letter about the types of things you might look to create a negative energy cloak for yourself, you're...
No, I mean for the psychic. For the psychic energy cloak.
Oh, that. Well, I mean, what are you asking Greiglid?
Like, I mean, he said that it's possible. So, like, does he have any ideas of things we could get in a short amount of time to do that?
Thinking we take it. Do you think we strip an Elithid down somehow? Down somehow?
Just put wear the squid part as a hat.